And we are live.
Hi, I'm Adam Gorham, your friendly neighborhood comic artist, and you are on Splash Pages.
Is the one obvious thing.
What's wrong with him?
His girl just broke it off.
It's her father. He doesn't want her dating a zombie.
Why? What are they, demons?
She is predeceased.
An outsider?
Man, you're asking for trouble.
She broke my heart.
You're a zombie. Technically, you don't even have a heart.
After all of the great cinema that we brought to the world, and we still get no respect.
I don't know why he doesn't like me. I'm responsible. A full-time job.
You work at a haunted house in October.
I'm trying to be healthy. She's a vegan, so...
Wait, you're giving up meat?
Oh, come on.
What are you gonna do? Attack a farmer's market to try to impress her?
Now, if he was a vampire, you'd have a much better chance with her death.
Yeah, those pretty bastards.
I didn't think this would be that hard.
Hard. Man, I'm a zombie and I'm black.
Oh, here we go.
I blame the educational system.
I blame the media.
I blame George Romero.
Oh. How could you be so disrespectful?
Coffee?
Zombies don't know much, but they do know good coffee. Deadly Grounds. It's coffee to die for, and zombie approved.
Who's George Romero?
Just have some coffee.
Hey, happy Tuesday, everybody. You are watching Splash Pages. My name is Leo. I'm the monkey behind the keyboard here. We have an amazing show scheduled for you as always. And to kick it off, Carrie, how's it going?
Hey, it's going great, Leo. Happy Tuesday, everybody. We have a great show, like Leo said. I'm sitting in Nebraska with kind of slow internet, so forgive me if I'm getting behind on things. Ratatosker and I are enjoying some bourbon to warm us up because we've been having record cold going on here, and I've actually turned my furnace on once or twice, which is beyond what I usually do. I live in the cold in the dark, so yeah, that's how I'm doing. Let's pop over and see how Jar's doing, though. He had all the snow to scoop, which I just had cold.
Oh, you're muted, Jar Jar.
No, I'm not. Anyways, happy Tuesday, everybody, and welcome to the show. I have my coffee, Deadly Grounds.
Woohoo! What flavor?
The flavor I put in my coffee.
Okay.
It's weird. Like, no matter what flavor I use, I always use a caramel creamer, so it changes the flavor anyways.
No, go with just regular creamer or yeah.
Guys, save it for the end of the show.
Don't tell me how to live my life. Over to Drew.
Thank you, Coffee Club. Or should I say the Cemetery Coffee Club? That's 3 C's. But hey, everybody, thank you for joining us. If you're watching this, you survived the snowpocalypse of 2026. Congratulations.
Mm-hmm.
So your reward, you're here with us on Splash Pages on Tuesday, not just because your internet's out. So we have a stellar guest for you tonight. If you've been paying attention, he's been doing a ton of great work for a bunch of greats over the years, and it's so nice to see him getting even more work as time goes on, because he's a fantastic artist and he's a real sweet guy. So if you've seen his work, you've seen him on New Mutants Dead Souls, you've seen him on The Violent with Ed Brisson. He did Godzilla Rivals, which was Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, or King Zero if you really want to get technical. He's been working on a lot of wonderful projects. He did 2 issues of Exquisite Corpses. He did the Hellhunters miniseries, which is frequent collaborator Phillip Kennedy Johnson, aka friend of the show. He's done Star Wars. He's done so much more that Carrie will definitely help me fill in the blanks. I'm blanking right now. But don't let me tell his biography. Let's let the man who keeps adding to it have a say. Everybody, the one, the only, Adam Gorham.
Yeah! Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me.
Oh my God, we have applause now.
You.
There you go. Yeah, man. Good to see you.
Likewise. Thanks for having me.
Oh yeah, no, thank you. It was really great to finally get to meet you in New York this year. And like I said, it was just one of those where I was like, oh shit, that's Adam Gorham. Like, I love his work. Just gonna say hi. I was like, I have nothing from his sign. I'll take a photo. You can't sign a photo.
That'll do.
That'll definitely do.
He could sign the camera.
Well, no, that's not. It's a lot of smudges.
You can.
Drew's our guy who recognizes. Yeah, Drew's our guy who recognizes every single creator in the world by staring at them. Like you could be passing around in like downtown New York, and he'd just be like, Adam Gorham's getting a slice. I got to go get it, or something.
I didn't. Whoa. Okay. That makes me sound a little creative. I'm an appreciator of everyday marvels. Okay.
I'm just saying you're really good at recognizing people where the rest of us are walking by. Like, I'm like, oh, well, that's Jimmy Palmiotti because that's Jimmy Palmiotti. You can't miss that guy. But, but other people, I'm just like, he looks kind of, and Drew's just like, oh, actually, that's this person who did this and this, he's our encyclopedia.
But
yeah,
what is Walt Simonson?
What was that, Leo?
Well, I can tell you, when you're sitting at a table at a show, even one as like busy and dense as New York City Comic Con is, it's always very nice when somebody can spot you in that larger crowd and say, I know you, your work is great. So I greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Oh no, absolutely. And thank you so much for coming on, because like I said, we've read some of it, but we didn't really take like a true deep dive into some of your work, and some of this stuff was absolutely great. So I'd like to start with something I know me and Jar bonded over, Godzilla. You wrote and drew what literally felt like an animated movie, right, Jar?
I was the only part that I was missing from it was the long build up to the reveal of Godzilla. Godzilla was there from the beginning, and I was like, this is fantastic.
Right. And then, of course, what I always love is that Godzilla has like an amazing like arsenal of characters, but it somehow always comes back to King Ghidorah. It's always the 3-headed golden dragon who shoots lightning out of its mouth with the big wings. And every time I'm like, I know it's coming, but I'm still so excited. Like, let's go. Beat the crap out of him, guy. Give him 1-4.
You can totally tell you're a fan, too.
They're my favorite pairing. I mean, I have a few favorite foes of Godzilla's, but getting to do Ghidorah for my story was an absolute thrill.
So So when Kong versus Godzilla was happening, were you rooting for the big guy?
Oh
Or
gosh, that was a big debate in our household.
Really?
I'm not even joking, but so I think
yeah,
ultimately, I think the way I came down on it is that ultimately Kong is like, you know, is the one I'd want to hang out with and spend time with, but Godzilla
right,
feels like the one that of course has to take the title.
right,
Um, and Kong, so like, you root for Kong, but you don't expect him to win, and that's okay.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
It's so funny you say that because I too had a similar thing. Like I have a friend who's even got like a King Kong tattoo
Oh
and
wow.
whatnot. And then I have another friend who's like got a Godzilla tattoo. And me, I'm like, actually it's pronounced Gojira. I'm that guy. Like Carrie would
Okay.
say, like, I'm like, it's Gojira. Okay. And if you watch the movie backwards, it's a beautiful story of a giant monster rebuilding Tokyo and then moonwalking back into the ocean. Um,
Well,
you
well
know,
that brings up a good question. Adam, what is your favorite era of Godzilla?
I'm
oh, that is a good question.
I'm having some technical difficulty. I'm not actually hearing what Jar is saying. So I don't know if that's on my end or what, but
Oh,
I didn't catch that.
yeah, I was
There you go.
asking, what is your favorite era of Godzilla?
I didn't catch that either. I'm so sorry.
Favorite era of
Oh,
Godzilla?
Oh, okay. Drew, you're coming in clear.
I shall speak
I
for the bird.
so I the high set era, the 90s is what I was most exposed to, and then it wasn't
Mhm.
until later that I started to see. I would see like Showa era films on like randomly on TV stations here and there. Like the most common one was Godzilla or King Kong versus Godzilla,
Mhm.
and then the '54 Godzilla. So like most of the ones from the 60s and 70s, they just weren't, they just didn't happen to be on television for the most part. Um,
Right.
And so the ones that we would sometimes have access to at like video rental stores were like, the 90s ones,
Mhm.
which were at the time somewhat current, like, not widely available, of course, but they were more, they were there because they were current. So um, uh, yeah, so I remember like Godzilla 1985. I had seen that a bunch as a kid,
Right.
and at some point, I know at some point I'd seen like Godzilla versus Destroyer as a
Right.
kid, and then when I was a little older, Millennium was I think Millennium was everywhere. I remember.
Right.
So the Heisei era is still my favorite design, and like there's lots to love in like from the Showa era, but cat face Godzilla is my absolute favorite.
Very cool.
Very cool. Did you enjoy -1 when it came out? Because I thought that was just such a beautiful love letter to kaiju fans.
Yeah, no, I loved it, and I was worried because I had managed to see it pretty early in its theatrical run.
Mhm.
But there was like even by then its reputation was preceding it, and it was being like lauded, and there was a lot of hype around it, right? And I
Right.
wanted to see it as soon as I could so that I could be a enjoy the hype and be a part of it rather than you know come into it. You know how sometimes it is when you hear so many great things about
Right.
a movie or whatever that could legitimately be great, but the hype has you've heard more about it, so that by the time you get to see it, it's sort of lost. There's
Mhm.
you don't feel as though you're discovering it. You feel like you're kind of finally getting around to it. So I
Yeah.
managed to see it pretty early on, and really did adore it. It
Oh
was
yeah, it was
pretty it was pretty
amazing.
profound.
Agreed.
I think I'm one of those late to the party guys that got there and was like, I liked it fine, but I wasn't like, oh wow, this is groundbreaking. I don't know.
Uh, Jar. I like I said, man. I watched it on Valentine's Day with my girl, and I I was like, this is what a wonderful way to celebrate the Day of Love. Just watching Godzilla just
Oh, it was a good
nuke a city.
Godzilla. It was good Godzilla, but I appreciated the show more. Or well, it's not a Godzilla show, but Godzilla's in it.
Oh, Monarch.
Yeah, Monarch.
Yeah, that was pretty great. No, but the fan, like Adam, the how much of a fan you were really translated in everything.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially how you created these human characters. It was just always so funny because in Godzilla movies, the humans play such a small role that every once in a while they have their scenes. And I was like, yeah, no, they're here too. They're not just ants to be stepped on when Godzilla does his thing. And I was like, no, they're contributing. They'll do something that affects the plot of this.
Yeah.
But it I don't know about you, Jar, but I got like a little bit of like Aliens vibe, like with Ripley and Bishop. Kind of
well, that's what I loved about the whole movie, or not movie, the book. It was like a movie. It had the whole B Godzilla feeling to it. The Martians were humans just with the blindfold kind of things over their eyes, and everything read like you were watching a Godzilla.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't you also post to like Reddit just because you were like, okay, I got to get this right? Like, am I right? Because I was doing the research. I was like, I think I saw like a post from like 2015 on like Reddit. You're like, hey guys, I'm doing this book. Like, what would you like? Kind of like asking Reddit, like, what do you guys think? Kind of.
No, actually, so not at that phase.
Okay.
When the book was done, when the book was done and it was going out, I had wanted to do my own cover. So this is like it's kind of a silly story, but
Go for it.
the way this came about was it was like during lockdown, and I got really into collecting Godzilla figures, and sort of, I had the room to rediscover my love of Godzilla and, really think long and hard about it. So I had an idea for a story and brought it to, people that I felt comfortable bringing into it, IDW. Coincidentally, they were getting this Rivals series going. So I actually pitched them something kind of like a standalone uh original idea, and they were like, well, coincidentally, we're doing this series. We think that we could make it fit in there, and that would be really great for us. And they wanted it for the first issue. And at the time, I was only interested in writing it. But they were like, well, if we're going to have you do it, we'd like for you to draw it as well. And I had never written anything of like that magnitude yet. So I needed more time, so they bumped from it being the first issue to the third issue, just to give me some time to get it right. And I had a really wonderful editor. And but anyways, when it came time to organize the covers, I asked for the cover, and they were like, well, we've got EJ Sue doing all the A covers, and EJ's great. So, and they were like, we don't know how many variants we're doing for this yet, so we can't promise you a cover.
Right.
And so I like, because I was writing it and I was drawing it, I was like, there's no way I'm not going to do a cover. So I had paid to have an exclusive print run of a cover that I painted by hand. And
No kidding.
yeah, so I invested in like this print run of like, I think it was like 800 copies or something like that, or 1,000. A lot of which I'm still in possession of, but I'm the only source for these covers. And so once I had cases of all these covers, I was thinking of different ways that I could like try to generate interest in them. So that's when I went to the Godzilla Reddit and just sort of let the fans know that it existed, because I know that, Godzilla fans, they love the movies and, the anime that were coming out around that time and so on. But, it's unclear whether they engage with like the comics, right? And, Godzilla comics have been coming out and off for a long time. But like they're not on everybody's radar. So I was like, my first mission was to let people know, hey, these comics exist. I wrote and drew one, and I have a very special cover for it. And and this is something that I'm trying to get the word out. And then I, and part of that was going to Chicago for G Fest, which is I think North America's largest Godzilla fan show.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
So I was, yeah. So
There's
I
a
was
con for
so like
everything.
I was on Reddit, I was on message boards, just letting people know like, hey, this is a thing, it exists, I made it. I personally think that it's really cool. Basically got to make my Godzilla movie in comic book form, and
Beautiful.
like yeah, and like marketing's very hard. I'm not a marketing guru, so I was like sort of doing what I could think to do, and people did end up, those that checked it out had very nice things to say, and but yeah,
Yeah,
that's
man.
so if you saw me on Reddit, that's what I was doing.
Okay, cool. I was like, oh, that's nice. Because normally
Yeah.
I'm like, people approach Reddit like, all right, we're gonna drop the depth charge in here. We're gonna see what we stir up.
Well, they were kind enough to do an AMA with me, the Godzilla
Nice.
mods. So they were nice enough to do that. My favorite thing about that whole experience, by trying to like promote on Reddit, was that like when G Fest was happening in Chicago, I went to like the Chicago subreddit and was like, hey, there's this event is happening in this part of Chicago at this date, and I'm going to be there. And somebody replied like, great, some guy I've never heard of is going to be at something I know nothing about. Thank you very much.
Oh wow,
that was like my favorite response.
Wow.
Damn.
Damn, that's crazy, man. But Leo, Carrie, what do you guys think of it?
I'm gonna pull up that cover real quick, actually, because I
Okay.
found it. I think I found it. Sorry if I wasn't totally paying attention, but
Yep, that's the one.
Wow, that is gorgeous.
Oh, thanks.
It really
Yeah, I had
is.
to paint that from start to finish inside like 24 hours. It was
It's a lot of fury.
it was an insane undertaking. I would never
Dude,
do it that way again.
24 hours? I can't paint art at all, and like that took you only 24 hours. That's amazing.
I'm just imagining like him like paint slaving away. He's wearing like a Godzilla onesie as he's doing like, in order to draw this, I must become Godzilla. Just building. Spare time, he builds a fake city and he just demolishes it. It's like when Stitch does that in Lilo and Stitch.
Yeah.
He just makes San Francisco and then wrecks it. Just no coffee, more coffee for you.
what kind of paint did you use for that? Because I'm gonna pull it up again. But
yeah, let's look at it again. Like, damn, that is stunning.
I believe that's all acrylic. There might have been. I don't think that there was much watercolor. I think it's pretty much all acrylic, and maybe I end up using whatever I feel works. Scanning that and getting that ready for print was a real challenge, because the scan just washes out all of the paint, and I tried taking photos of it with like a camera that wasn't so terrific, and I don't have like a professional photography studio, so it was I didn't think the process through, but I'm ultimately happy with how it turned out.
That is very pretty. Like, how do you decide on what to use as a form to create something like that? Oh, I don't think he can hear me.
Yeah. Adam, Jar, I wanted to know, like, what kind of come into like creating something like that? Like, where does that idea just gestate and then come to fruition onto the canvas or the page?
That's a good question. Sorry once again that I'm not hearing everyone so clearly, so my apologies, Jar. But
you're good.
We'll get through.
Okay. Yeah, I just don't want anybody to think that I'm being rude or something.
Oh no, you're good. You're good.
But
you're fine.
Okay. So my inspiration, like I said, I really wanted to make my 2-hour movie in comic book form. And
Right.
so my idea for the cover was to do something that felt like it could have been, like a cover that you might see like on a movie in a movie theater, like a movie poster, basically. Um, and you know, my original title for like the story before it became what it was Godzilla Red Planet Invaders, and it was going to be like that's why like Mars is a thing in there,
Right.
um, and so I had to, I wanted it to feel like a B movie from like the 50s and 60s. So like that kind of, because a big part of this too is like not only my love of Godzilla, but like I love alien invasion movies and alien and disaster movies, and so
Right.
like there was this you know sweet spot when I was like like around 95, between
Mhm.
95 and 97, where like all my favorite things were like Independence Day, Men in Black, the Tim Burton's Mars Attacks movie,
Oh God.
the X Files, and so on. So like it's as much a love letter to alien invasion and sci-fi movies as it is to Godzilla. And
Right.
I loved the idea of like my original pitch was like not quite the Martians from Mars Attacks, but like my version of that meets Godzilla.
Mhm.
And so and then like and then there would have been an original monster in the mix. And so
Mhm.
that's anyway. So like I always had this idea that like Mars and would play some kind of figure in the poster,
Right.
um, and things flying out of it. And I mean like the red planet also kind of, you get that interplay with like the rising sun of Japan, which also I guess fits Godzilla. So there's a lot
Yes.
of
Yeah, that's what.
overlap in themes and stuff. So but yeah, I always had like big red circle and then things emanating around that. That was always in my
Well,
mind.
let me just say, like, again, that is just a stunning movie poster, and I'm pretty sure if you're at a convention that me and Jar are at, we're going to be asking for a cover because that is just stunning. Am I right, Jar?
Thank you.
Does he still have the original?
Do you still
Do
have the
you still have
original
the
of
original?
that?
No, all the art for that issue has been sold. I do have plenty
Oh,
of those covers available. So
okay, yeah, Jar, we got to get on this, man.
Terrificon.
Yeah. Well, the next one that I wanted to bring up is one that I feel all of us have one question. So, The Violent with Ed
yes,
Bisson.
yeah,
Before we get into the both of this unexpected roller coaster of a ride, I just need to get out of the way. The question everybody had was the same one. Volume 2, when? But we're going to get to that.
yeah.
That book, I did not know what to expect in 5 issues, but that rocked me, the story. And
Yep.
it just, I feel like it kind of broke me a little bit too, in a violent way. What do you guys say?
Yeah, I've. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go
Okay.
ahead, Carrie.
Okay.
Oh no, I've had like a lot of people. I don't know if you can hear me or not, Adam, but like
I
I
can.
have in
Yep.
my life. Okay, I've had in my life, like I had a bunch of um it's a weird story. A bunch of homeless people were living in my place, thanks to my ex, who was also living here when I was spending a lot of time doing caregiving. So I was like 90% of the time gone living at my mother's house, taking care of my grandparents. And that brought in a lot of tweakers. Unfortunately, I said it the other night, and I'm going to say it again. The homeless population is not hugely made up of drug addicts, but a lot of drug addicts have the drug addict population has a lot of homeless people in it. And unfortunately, those are the people staying at my house. And so I've seen people who've been going through some of these things when I'd come home, like a lot of the same issues where it's like trying to get clean, not being able to do so, getting into violent altercations. There were people that I saw them, and then like 2 or 3 days later, they were dead. They weren't friends of mine. They were just people that were around me. Um, which sounds really crass to say, but seeing the way that that whole story played out and the references on like how like I loved how you had there was like people just say fuck it all with life when you're reaching those positions, and you had like dishes stacking up in the sinks, and the places were just kind of a mess and either barren or cluttered with a bunch of just your general living kind of stuff and not a lot in the ways of like cool furniture. What did you use for references and what all inspired you for was it written out like in the in the scripting, or was it kind of like, here we have somebody who's living in super bleak circumstances? Because
Mhm.
the rest of the stuff too, like everything going on was incredible, but I was really taken aback just by the background homes and situations like that that you were able to throw forward.
Yeah. Well, I'm certainly, I'm really glad that you were able to connect with the book and that it affected you. And like hopefully, had a nice time reading it. But,
Oh,
I, a lot of the a lot of the texture of the violent, like, really is, due to Ed, who is he's one of my favorite writers to have worked with and one of my favorite writers to read. So Ed is Ed writes a lot of wonderful things, but he excels at crime fiction, and that's, I would say, like his real that's his forte. That's where he really shines.
mm,
And so, just to give a bit of background, Ed, like, he's a Canadian writer, lived in, Vancouver, British Columbia, and the surrounding area for many years,
mhm,
and like like his, I think, his, don't want to speak too much for Ed, but like his father was a policeman, and so like he, was kind of, grew up seeing a lot, was exposed to a lot, and got a lot of insight from his father, in that regard. And then, of course, like the city of Vancouver, where the violin is set, is a place that it was home to him, right? So
right.
it really was. He had a lot of, it was drawing from personal experience and just like stuff that you couldn't help but be exposed to as somebody living there. And we talked a lot about the story and its trappings when we were, putting it together. Mm,
Mhm,
And so, like, like with Ed, uh, he's a great collaborator, but he writes in such a way where, like, I don't feel like I need to, you know, I'm in very much, because like I can't really, like there might be areas that are open for discussion in terms of like how do we execute a scene, or what can be added to give something some extra punch or whatever. But I would say that the beating heart of the violent, or any, or like, like is coming from Ed. And so I remember reading the first script and getting to the end of it and just feeling really knocked out, with the as like with Mason getting in trouble with the cops, and his kid is in the car, and you know what I mean. So like, mm,
Mhm.
I was, at the time that I was drawing this, like, I had a newborn. So I have two children, and at the time my older girl was like about 5, and then when I was drawing this, like, we had, so feeling, you know as it, as a, not a new parent, but like, a new parent again, there's, you've got lots of like, general worries and anxieties. And so it's like, throughout the series, there was just things that like really amplified those feelings that were already within me. But then, like, I'm getting to kind of reading about, like, parents doing making bad decisions, and seeing bad things go from bad to worse, and so on. And so, like, I was able to, in a way, um, embrace that. You know what I mean? Like, as a way to sort of like confront my feelings of like, as a, you worry about everything as a parent, and so I got to work with characters who were making worse decisions than I might have been, and there was something oddly cathartic about that. And then also, sometimes you think of worst case scenarios so that you can be prepared for them. And so, and then also, I was just trying to tell a convincing thriller, right? That looked something that looked good, something that was that felt like it could be across the street, right? And so Ed was really good about taking photography where he can. If you follow Ed online these days, one of the things that he does a lot is he showcases his really excellent photography skills. And so there was some real life locations from the story that he wanted to get as fairly exact. And so there was like one so there was like one photo in particular that we had that wound up we used for promotion at the time. And so yeah, he was really great about providing like real world locations. And then in terms of like interior, like he would just describe things in a way where it's like, I feel like that was my that was my uncle's basement, you know what I mean, or like that was my parents' friend's apartment. Like every place that he described felt like a place that I had some kind of childhood memory of. And so there was just, I think it's just in the naturalistic way that he writes and in conversation relays things that I was able to I felt as if like I had known these people, had been to these places. And so then there was a lot that I could just sort of like fill with myself, right? And then for the specifics, obviously there's reference and things that you can look at. But like like I have family ties to that part of Canada, and I have memories from that part of Canada. And so there was just a lot of the both of us in that book, and then creating that world. And yeah, so I can't, there's no one specific resource. It just like the whole thing, like the violent is such a personal project for the two of us. Like it felt really rewarding to get to do. And it's a book that I'm still immensely proud of.
I like how you mentioned the being a new parent while you were writing it, because that's something else that the violent itself, if you aren't a parent or haven't been a parent, you can probably like look and be like, wow, you're a shitty parent, but if you are a parent and you're watching people like, okay, I'm running inside to do something real quick. And I mean, like you normally don't leave your kid in the car to do that. But when I was a kid, we were left in the car all the time. Like it was just like, sit here. I'm going in getting groceries, going to talk to somebody. You guys just hang out and amuse yourself. But maybe not as young as in there. But
Yeah.
But there's just like, as a parent, it brings up all these extra things on like, the feeling that he's getting with like, my kid's in the car. I got to get out of here. I can't do this. I fucked up the other day. I got to do everything. But he's still, but he still breaks down and does the wrong thing. And we talked about this before. This is just a real quick switcheroo. I'm hoping you've read it, but I know you've worked recently in Exquisite Corpses with James Tynion. And have you read his Spectrograph?
No, I haven't.
It was a book. Okay, it's fabulous. It's another one of those things where it's an entirely different story if you're a parent. Where like you look at it and so he's got some great stuff. There's a kid that's been left at home that for what was supposed to be a short thing, and then like it turns into this long multi-day, and you're just like, oh my God. But so I wasn't sure because you'd worked with him if you'd like. I suppose you don't like obsessively read every single thing by every person that you ever work with. I'm just kind of obsessed. But yeah, I loved that though. Like you could feel it totally when you see like the little shots of the face, the way it drops so much. So thank you for that. And as Drew was saying, we were all wondering, and I've seen that you were talking about doing a Kickstarter for the Violent 2. or volume 2. And also there was Two-Headed Press that Ed, Fabian Rangel, Ryan Ferrer, Tini Howard, Curtis Priest, and Christopher Sabella put together, and that was supposed to be one of the books that came up with her, but it didn't seem to happen. Or is there still? I've read 7 years ago, Ed said we're not going to Kickstarter it now. The Trade for Violence sold fairly well, so Adam, Mike, and I will return to it one day. It's just a matter of finding the time, as all three of us are working at Marvel now and being kept quite busy. But it's coming at some point. Is that still on the table?
I wouldn't rule it out entirely, but I wouldn't. It's not in active development. So in it's in 2020, we were really, like when the world kind of shut down, and it seemed like an opportunity to kind of get back on that and make something out of it. And so Ed wrote the first issue of it, and I drew a large portion of it. And so I have pages from the issue of the second volume. So those exist. And but yeah, like you mentioned in that interview, neither of us were crazy about crowdfunding it. And at the time that we were exploring options, comics publishing was in a very bizarre place because of the pandemic. And so there was just creator owned deals were really changing fast, and nobody knew what Diamond was going to do, and nobody, so there was just tons and tons of uncertainty. So like it was a weird dichotomy, because like there was a bunch of projects that had to be put on hold by various publishers. So a lot of creators suddenly had some extra time. So you had creators that wanted to get something up and going, and were able, had the capacity to do so. But then on the publishing end of it, a lot of publishers like, oh, this is cool, but we're at a time now where we can only put out like half titles that we might have, or this is the kind of deal that we can currently offer. And so yes, there was just really nothing that, no real way forward. And really, I can't stress how like neither of us wanted to run like a crowdfunding campaign. I think even with extra time, neither of us felt like we had the capacity for it. I think Ed had done it before. I found it terrifying. I don't know why. I just like, I think like even today I had a conversation with like a colleague of mine about doing, independent work, like stuff that I would write and draw and get that off the ground. And I was like, I'm still terrified of crowdfunding. It's kind of like crowdfunding is like, in my mind, it's like sending out invitations to your birthday and having nobody show up to the party. So just an experience that like I do not want to have. But that being said, like I know the story for the second volume that Ed had wanted to do. It is it's terrific. And so like if we were in a place where like we felt like it could happen, I would gladly do it. But like for me, like I've been very fortunate in that the work that I've been doing has been steady, and keeping my head afloat. And then Ed just wrote a book for Mad Cave, which was like another excellent crime book. And so for those who I think it's called Wild Animals. And so like for those of you who want more of that like violent goodness, I would say that going and reading Wild Animals from Mad Cave, written by Ed, drawn by Andy Kuhn. It's a great book. I think that might satiate the desire, that hankering. But yeah, maybe I'm not saying no, I'm not saying never. It's just it's not planned right now.
Absolutely. And then, did anybody else have anything else to ask about the violence before we move on to the next book?
I just had accolades to give to tell him how great it was. Like I do have friends that have passed from heroin use and stuff like that, and it was, although it was a very tragic story, it was told so well. His art made stuff it was beautiful. Like, oh, I did have a question.
Okay.
Did he use subjects for to, you know what I'm trying to say?
Reference models.
Reference models. Thank you. Wow.
Yeah. I mean,
especially for the dog. The dog looked fierce, and I was just like, I
Yeah.
felt bad for the dog too.
yeah, basically, Adam, did you hear any of that, or could you still not hear Jar?
I can't hear Jar. I don't know why.
Okay.
I think Jar and
Yeah.
Leo are not coming
We're
through
on
for me.
different
I'm sorry.
frequencies.
Yeah.
Fucking
So, all
asshole.
right. So what he was, what Jar was saying was just more accolades to you, what you and Ed did in terms of content. It was just phenomenal. But he wanted to know,
Well,
did
thank you.
you use any reference models or things of that matter? Because some of the faces, poses, characters, even the very aggressive pit bull, that the second that dealer kicked him, was like, oh, you're gonna die.
Oh yeah.
I've seen John Wick. You abuse the dog. That is a sign of death. Did you?
Yes.
Okay, he did.
No, well, I mean, I'm agreeing with you that you kick a dog, your days are numbered.
Numbered.
But
Sorry.
I would use reference. Like we talked about, like just to kind of get a feel for the characters. Like if we were to cast so and so in this role, which actor
Okay.
would we look at, right? That kind of thing. And but we didn't want to do a thing where like it looked like the actor, and I didn't necessarily want to do a thing where like, you know, like I use a lot of self-reference. So like I
Right.
never want to look like, I don't want the drawings to look like me. But like I find that with every artist, it you know, inevitably you see them in their work. But locations, yes, certainly there were some specific locations in Vancouver and in the surrounding area where Ed was like, this is the street corner, or this is the, you know, this is the, you know, the kind of building that they're going into, that kind of thing. Or like specifically the car, like this is the kind of car. And like I remember for the second volume, which unfortunately you won't get to see, but he was like, there's this specific car that gets stolen, and that becomes like the main car from issue to issue. So I found like like a Matchbox Hot Wheels of
Oh,
that
hell yeah.
car, and was able to use that quite a bit. So yeah, and then like I remember agonizing over the first page, like really agonizing. So when we were pitching it to Image, you know, like at the time, might still be the case, but like you needed like 5 pages as a proof of concept, and
Right.
5 finished pages. And I drew I drew 5 pages, and we had it colored, and it was fine. And then I forget, I can't remember if we got greenlit off of those first 5 or what. But by the time it came, by the time it was greenlit and it was time for rubber to hit the road, I looked at those 5 pages and I was like, these are terrible, and this is not how I want people to enter this story. And I, you know, like, and I was still, you know, this was like I think 2014, 2013, 2014, and I was still pretty new as an artist. And so I was like really trying to push, like, you know, for more interesting visuals, right? And so I really, really worked to get that. There's this, like, I think it's like the first page, it's a splash image of like Mason sitting on like a picnic table staking out a house.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted that to be as like visually interesting as I could make it. And so by the time I cracked it, it was just this like epiphany, this eureka moment. And that wound up kind of becoming like a motif of every issue, where like every the first page of every issue was kind of like this you know, portrait splash of Mason in some kind of predicament. And so yeah, I that's kind of how I found the book. And like I remember going for like walks to kind of like in my neighborhood to sort of see if there was something out in the world that I was missing in my imagination, and like coming across like a picnic bench, and like, how do these things look like, what does this picnic bench look like from this angle, and so on and so forth. So yeah, so I, you know, I had to, but I mean, like, he paid off, and so on. So like there was there was reference, but not like, nothing that I was really rigid about. Just,
Hmm.
where I needed it, specifics that felt like, because it was, the whole idea is that it was set in a real place. And we wanted it to be very relatable. So I was trying to like find as much from real life as I could. Yeah.
Awesome.
Answered my question perfectly.
Yeah, indeed. Carrie, you had a question, and then we'll move on to the next book.
Yeah, well, while you were going into processes here, I thought it would be a good time to ask, as you were discussing your reference methods and things like that, are you more into physical or digital these days? And like, which do you prefer? Is there a reason for it? And what are your favorite tools to use in those cases?
Yeah, I easily physical traditional art. I love getting my hands dirty. A lot of my friends, if you follow me on Instagram, I post a lot of process stuff. It gets pointed out to me a lot. Like you will eventually see some huge ink mess that I've made. I'm kind of notorious for it. Every once in a while, like I think there's like photos of me online where like, an airbrush that I use exploded in my face and there's black ink all over me, black ink all over the floor. Like it's just but I love drawing traditionally. Over the years, I've integrated more digital stuff just because of certain industry standards. And, so like these days in my process, I'm starting digitally with layouts. Then I'm refining those layouts on my iPad and importing into Photoshop and then printing those out and using a light box to do my finished pencils and inks over that. And then I'm scanning and then I'm doing a lot of, I'm prepping pages for print. And then in some cases, I'm adding like gray tones and finishes digitally, where I have to, or if there is like, as happens, like, hey, this character, their outfit is wrong, and Darth Vader's buttons on his chest plate are incorrect. Then I go in, do the digital wizardry, and make these quick changes, and so on.
Right.
Yeah.
Very nice.
With the one question I had, and this was different than everything else I saw of yours, the R.L. Stine Stuff of Nightmares Red Murder issue.
Yeah.
When you came through and drew that, was it your choice or the colorist's choice to throw in? And forgive me if I get this wrong. I'm not always sure if it's halftones or Ben-Day dots, what it's
Yeah.
called in the background for the shading. But was that a choice of yours, or was that what they decided to do?
No, it was mine. It was a stylistic choice. I wanted to try adding some new textures and just doing some stuff that I hadn't before. And I hadn't really done like a straight horror book before, I think. And so I just, was trying to get loose with it. And I had seen people use stone patterns to great success. And I would do, so for that book, I was adding that. I was also adding like I was taking bits of watercolor paper and like just letting watercolor bleed down to page and then superimposing that on the art so that the idea being that like when things were getting bloody in the story that you kind of just felt like dripping. So I don't know how effective that was, but that was my idea. So there is, if you I don't know if you necessarily see it in the colors, but in the black and white gray tone art, you can see just sort of like, like dripping across all the murder pages.
Yeah, that story was just like a collage of different methods going through, and it was beautiful. All the different ways that you approach it. And that's how I was like curious, because it was like we have this and we have this and we have this. And I was just like, wow. So
yeah,
thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so over to Drew.
Actually, speaking of, you mentioned Vader, and
yes,
Drew, you may need to translate. Let me just pull this.
I can hear you, Leo.
Oh,
he can hear you, Leo.
Awesome. Woo!
Yeah.
I'm all by myself.
Okay.
All by yourself.
I'm imagining that you're a pretty good Star Wars fan. So, some of your imagery is like it's ripped right from the movie. Are you a big Star Wars fan?
I really love the original trilogy. I grew up with them. I think that like I was born in '85. One of my earliest memories is being with my dad looking at a VHS copy of Empire Strikes Back through like a glass cabinet. And this is back when I think VHS tapes cost like $50. Like, so buying a home video was like a huge investment. And I remember that cover. And like, so I would, I just, I never grew up in a world where there wasn't Star Wars. And so it's weird to, I don't, I'm like, I'm trepidatious about calling myself a fan because, being in comics, I know a lot of like for real fans of Star Wars, like fans that could
Right.
take me to school. But so I always prefer to say like I have a lot of really special memories, with Star Wars. Like Star Wars is a part of my pop culture DNA.
Okay.
So yeah, so there's tons I don't know, like, lore wise, like, like I don't
Mhm.
have that encyclopedic knowledge, but like I get warm and fuzzy feelings when I revisit those every time I see those original films and
Yeah,
and parts
absolutely.
of and parts of Phantom Menace.
Select bit. Just you know exactly where. You even know the timestamp. Like, all right, cue up 2246. Okay, Leo, we have to ask him the question. Again. I'm sorry, Adam. What is the favorite Star Wars movie?
Oh, it's Empire. Like
Okay.
I don't think that that's like a wild answer, but it is like it is the truth. And
Mhm.
yeah, like it is. Like I've seen the first three like so many times. But yeah, there's just something about Empire that like obviously I think it's probably the one that's favored most by most. Um, but yeah, I can't even. I'm having trouble even putting it into words why it's significant to me. But I just
No,
it's easily my favorite.
Empire. Yeah, Empire is special. So did you go back and rewatch before you started working on the Vader series?
No. So it came about in a really weird way. I had for a long time wanted to steer clear of books like Vader,
Mhm.
because I had not I wasn't I had seen, growing up, when I would see books that were like this is a Star Trek comic or this is like an adaptation of a movie, like it's licensed books of that nature where like the actors likenesses need to be pretty accurate. I felt like sometimes they could look a little like stiff and unexciting. And that that wasn't true of everything, but um, it was true enough to make me like not like do I really want to like painstakingly recreate like this guy's face? And but I remember, yeah, a few years ago, for May the 4th, I did a Vader drawing that I threw up online just for fun. And Raf Yanko, who drew like the majority of this volume of Vader,
Mhm.
also a Canadian, I think relatively local to me, he saw it and he reached out to me on social media and was like, do you want to get in touch with my Marvel editors and maybe you pick up some work on Vader so that I can take the winter break off, give myself a winter break? And I had never had an artist sort of like suggest that I sort of take over for them before in my life. It was really strange. And also, like, he didn't have hiring power, the editors had hiring, so it was
Right.
really just kind of like a suggestion on their part. It was wild from the very beginning, and I was like, well, I don't think that's how it works. And he's like, well, here's my editor's contact, if you get in touch with them and let them know you're interested, maybe they'll get the ball rolling. And so I thought about it and I thought, oh, what the heck? They'll probably say no. So I threw my hat in the ring and they did say no. And then I don't know what was said behind the scenes, but like the next day, they were like, actually,
Just kidding.
We
You're
were
right.
playing.
if you're interested, will you draw likenesses of Luke and Leia real quick for Lucasfilm's approval? And so I was like, sure. And then later that afternoon, sent in likenesses. And then they looked at them and I guess like they could tell that I really I drew them fairly fast because they were like, give it a day, take the day to like really nail these, and then
Mhm.
we'll get this through. So it took a day, and so they were better looking likenesses, and then I got approved by Lucasfilm, and then they gave me a couple of issues of Vader, and then that went really well, and I wound up having a lot more fun on the book than I expected to, because Greg Pak, who wrote the volume that I worked on, my first issue. Yeah, wonderful guy. Got to meet him for the first time at New York City Comic Con. Super cool dude.
So chill.
Greg, the script that I got was like a gift. Like, I can't think of a better word to describe it, because it was so metal. It was just Vader losing control of his force abilities, and he was like just tearing through a Star Destroyer and just like mayhem, mayhem, mayhem. So it was like, it wasn't stiff at all. Like, it required me to bring like a lot of like chaos and violence and energy to that character. So it wound up being like a ton of fun to draw. And then so like there were things that I would have to revisit at the time. So like for certain vehicles and for certain sceneries, they would sometimes there'd be in the script notes like, for this thing, watch Rogue One. For this thing, it's in this scene of Empire.
That is the best
so
homework.
Nothing from Jedi, because it was leading up to Jedi, but yeah. So like whenever I had to, I would like put this on and I for the reference, and then 30 minutes later I realized like, oh, I'm just watching the movie at this point. And so I wound up watching a lot of Star Wars as a result. So I went through the Obi-Wan series. I watched Rogue One, and and so on. So like that, as a fun side benefit, I got to revisit all these things and have fun.
And the thing that I will say as a Star Wars fan, appreciator, aficionado, whatever you want to call yourself, is that music is so intricately tied to Star Wars. Like, it's really hard not to, you just hear those John Williams melodies. You just get goosebumps. Like, exactly. You feel your feelings, and your brain is just like, you get the you're like, I must go away. It's time to be a hero. You know what I mean? Or or you mentioned Phantom Menace. You just hear that chorus of muses, and you're like, it's about to go down. And you're like, and then what I love is that Star Wars, when it's not, because there's some people that really take it seriously, and I applaud you, but please breathe. You just feel like a kid again. Like, you know what I mean? Like, even if you have toy lightsabers, plastic, stage combat, ones that make sound, everything, you just, it's just, it's one of the best. And I feel like, again, not only are you someone who appreciates it, but you got to kind of experience a second fandom by contributing to it in this way. So there's a part of you that's now a part of Star Wars, which again, this is like the high five to the younger version of you. Like, you did it, guy. You did it. And you didn't need to get frozen in carbonite to do it. Good job.
Right? Yes, exactly. It's wild. Like, you get to contribute to these tapestries, and that's something I'm proud of. Yeah.
Yeah. And then moving on to kind of the next
but before we do, the book you were mentioning, I believe this is it here. This is totally badass. But you mentioned Rogue One.
Pose.
Yeah.
Just a little fun fact. There were several cons where Jar Jar and I hung out with the actor that played Vader in Rogue One.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, he's such a cool dude, Spencer Wilding. But we met him so many times that like in his downtime he'd like chill out with us, and it was just surreal. Just how many cons did we see him with?
At least 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And that was probably just with the boys.
And then Dylan wants to know, who is your favorite Star Wars character? If it is Jar Jar Binks, Jar will appreciate you more.
It's Han Solo. Very, very easily Han Solo.
What did he think of the Solo movie?
The Han Solo thought of the Solo movie?
No, what did he think of the Solo movie?
Since you are a Han Solo fan, Jar wants to know what you thought of the Solo story movie, the standalone.
Oh, I enjoyed it. It was always going to be kind of an uphill battle for the guy. The actor escapes my name.
Yeah.
And it was I think it was unfortunate that like it had some bad press beforehand about like refilming and like reshoots and all that kind of stuff. And so I think it like, I think that it, whether or not it couldn't be helped. Like I think like the audience was kind of trained to expect like a disaster to some degree, because I remember hearing the stories of like the actor didn't seem happy with the original version and they're going into reshoots and Ron Howard's taking over, and there's there's entire characters that are being recast or cut out. So it just sort of painted this picture like, oh, what are we going to get, right? And so it's hard to kind of remove that from your mind when and see the movie on its own terms. And I think I've seen it twice now, and as is the case with like a lot of these things, like I enjoyed it well enough for the first time, and when I watched it the second time, I was like, this is a really enjoyable movie. And I do feel like I'm so curious about that first version, the Phil Lord and Chris Miller version. Like I'm so curious as to what that what it was supposed to be, what it looked like, and all that. But the version we got, I feel like is it's like it's a perfectly serviceable movie, and I feel like there's really nothing to be upset about with it.
Right. That's fair.
Only Star Wars fans are upset.
And there's already millions of them. One of our friends of the show, the great Justin Cooper, wanted to say, "Hey Adam, thanks for the sweet punk mambo sketch you gave me in Chicago."
Oh gosh, you're welcome. That must have been in 2020. The last time I was at a Chicago show, and I think that was the first and last convention of 2020. But you're very welcome.
Was. And I know because I was there, and that was such a wonderful time before the world was like, okay, cool, some new con. Like I remember that was the first time I ever elbow bumped a creator. I was just like, okay, cool, hey, how you doing? Because people were getting weird about germs around then, and I'm still like, this is fine. And I was like, I gotta stop saying these things out loud. Yeah, no, it's not my fault though. I had no idea what was coming. No one did.
Speaking of what's coming, we are running a little bit late. I do know we wanted to cover Hellhunters.
Yeah, there's a few that there's at least that we wanted to cover, Leo. And so you're right, let's jump into that, kind of piggybacking off of Incredible Hulk. So the first thing to say is thank you for your contributions to Incredible Hulk. As a fan of Al Ewing's Immortal Hulk, the book is such a fantastic successor on its own respect to Immortal Hulk's legacy. And also, I got to say, I think you and Philip created probably one of my favorite ghostwriters, which was Sal Romero, who is just, my God, we need more time. Like, we got all the others. I was like, I want to see more of Sal. I want to see this guy, because this guy fucking rocks. And Carrie can back me up on that, because she's the person in this group most likely to reveal that she is a ghostwriter.
Yeah, I have a new thing going where I'm starting off with a commission from one person where I'm getting people to draw Granny Ketch as a ghostwriter with like a walker and like with flaming little tennis balls and shit, And one of my friends is going to do it. Was like, oh, we'll put her with like family pictures. Like we'll have her with Johnny Blaze's Ghost Rider, we'll have her with Danny's Ghost Rider, and I'm like, can we have her like kind of batting her eyes at Sal Romero because she'd be the right age where that would be the like, ooh, he's the
He's cute.
Ghost Rider of my generation,
Yeah, exactly. He
So
can. That man, can come back from war anytime. Like, hey there, what's up? What's up? What's up? Is it Romero or Romeo? What's up, guy? Hey there.
Oh, Jesus, Drew.
But that was fantastic. Just the entire instance, especially contributing to the ongoing escapade of how gruesome can you make a Hulk transformation?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, what was it like? You helped create this. It almost feels like a one-shot Ghost Rider, and then you get a book where you get to do so much with it.
Yeah. I mean, it's super cool. I don't know how else to put it, but I'm really grateful. I had been so like yourself, big fan of Immortal, and then was really into Phillip Kennedy Johnson and Nick Klein's run on Incredible Hulk as well. It was something I was actively reading and enjoying when I linked up with Phillip. So Phillip was the writer who had approached me about collaborating a few times before, and it just, the timing was never correct. And then until finally it was, and then I remember he got in touch saying like, "Hey, I'm doing this. I want to do a spin-off, a miniseries of Ghost Rider 1944. It was introduced in Incredible Hulk," and I was like, "I know what you're talking about. I read your series. That would be very cool." So he was my champion, and he got me onto the series, and I mean, it was just so much fun.
Oh yeah.
And he like, it's an era of the Marvel history that feels like there's still a lot of ripe fruit on that tree, a lot of stuff that's
100%.
like, and so that was something there was a lot of room to explore. And it's also an interesting area too, because like there is established canon and so on. So like, pardon me. So there was things that like couldn't be touched. There were things that could be played with. And yeah, we just had a really fun time doing it. Pardon me.
Well, and I think the thing that I especially loved is, and then Carrie Jar through me, and Leo, chip in. I loved how many things can we have Sal Ghost Rider customize? Like, I don't know what was cooler, a ghost tank or essentially a ghost like cargo plane. Like I was like,
I love that.
Like I was
You
just
realize.
blown away. Like I was like because we saw some of that ability in Ghost Rider, the second Ghost Rider movie. Even though we don't talk about that here because Carrie is not a fan of either of those because of Nick Cage. And but the whole thing, man. But also you and Phillip creating the Soldier Supreme was just the coolest thing. Like if I ever see somebody cosplays that, I'm like, you rock. Like
that would be very wild. Yeah,
absolutely. And even like Wolverine, like you guys just did so well with that. But then I when we had Phillip on, and you guys remember this, I was like, where's volume 2? Please give us more. Like I would read every issue of Hellhunters.
Yeah.
Hands down, if this is the kind of quality stuff. And I agree with you, like there are still gaps that you could easily fill in this story and it won't muck up Marvel continuity in any way, shape, or form. And you guys even hinted at some of these characters' futures with the powers. I was like, dude, so freaking crazy. And just more demons blowing shit up, fiery chains, just hands down. You guys looked like you were having a ball. Like some part of me is like, what didn't get in? What ended up on the cutting floor? Like, jeez.
Yeah, we were given 5 issues. I could easily have done like 6 to 8, and I think that it would have been like just extra issues just for mayhem, just for
Right.
more spatter and gore. Yeah, it'd been really fun. Believe the Hellhunters will return in some shape or form. Phil
We
has alluded as much. But that anything more, I don't think I'm able to say.
That's fair. And also, just love Romero being a subtle Captain America fanboy. That was pretty great. So,
And I believe Carrie had some stuff she wanted to cover about the tanks. Is that correct?
Yeah, or actually back just a page or two, I think, on here.
Right there.
I loved how you had the tank and stuff, but like right in here, I'm a lettering geek, so I'm always like, and I know that you aren't the letterer, but it looks like you were working like creating things perfectly for the letterer to work out with on some of these, like the booms and the badooms and stuff. Like you were like, oh yeah, I know this is gonna happen. I'm gonna set this up so that they have the best spot possible to drop in this stuff, to drop in their work and like let this flow. Like working in tandem with the bassist rather than just making them find a spot to drop their stuff.
mhm.
Well, I think that there is just pardon me. I want to say Joe Caramagna lettered. He I think he just knew what he was doing. So
Oh,
I'm one of these terrible artists that doesn't necessarily put word balloons in my layouts and stuff. So like I think if anything, I'm somebody that can make a letterer's jobs harder. Mm,
I
Apologies, everybody.
You're okay.
But so I mean, like if you're admiring the letters, then it's really like I cannot take any credit for it. Yeah, but they are terrific.
it was Travis Lanham, by the way, just to give him credit. But
Oh
and Leo,
yes, sorry.
there was the other page that, and this was something I wanted to ask too, on page 82. Okay, here where we have the Ghost Rider, just like so much color and it looks like an oil painting almost going on. How are- do you have pencils for that or inks or anything that like how much of that do you draw versus leave up to the painter to do?
Mhm.
It's
Well,
Good question.
I so in my so a lot of it's just like Frank Martin being brilliant, and like I don't really give a lot of color notes. Like initially when I would do my character designs, I might do them in color to let them know like their hat is green, this is their shirt is red, that kind of thing, just to give them some idea. Or if there was ever like this is how I want like the skull to look within the flames, etc. I might give those kinds of color notes, but by and large, I'm letting the colorists do their thing. And so with my art, there was like obviously there's where I'm putting where I'm spotting the blacks, but I'm also using a lot for this series in particular. I was using a lot of ink wash, and so the ink wash would suggest where light sources are coming from or how light is being played within the scene, and so on. So while not necessarily like a coloring note, it does kind of let the colorist know like where light is coming from and how it's being played within the scene, and so they can color from like from that informed those visual aids, right? Then in terms of
yeah.
like the palette and how they're laying the color on there, like that's just like as I said, that's just Frank being brilliant.
Okay, I just wasn't sure like how much of like the flame from the eye you drew and the streaks of like okay, color in this with I'm gonna put where the streaks go on kind of thing because it it was a beautiful merger that you guys had.
Agreed.
I feel the very same. Like I was in every time I would get color art back from Frank, I was in awe. I just felt extraordinarily lucky.
What was there any like? I mean, again, it was 5 issues. Of just great. Was there anything that was like your absolute favorite? Like the second you read this, you're like hot. Like you saw it and you put it down. And it was perfect. like exactly. And then the second you saw it in a comic, you're like, I'm gonna love signing this book. Like, just love this, you know?
So the first issue was a big deal for me. Like it was a big deal in the sense where like I was on the book because Philip championed me. And like I think that I had worked for Marvel before, so I wasn't like a stranger over there or anything like that. Like I wasn't I don't think that I was their first choice, if I'm being honest, but he really saw me as the perfect fit for this book. Um,
Mhm.
and or like a good fit for let's
Right.
anyway, so felt like I had a lot to prove on that first issue, in like prove to to Marvel, but also to prove to Philip, like, hey, you did not bet on the wrong horse. I'm gonna do my very best to make this a kick-ass series. Mm.
Right.
So when I was, reading his that first issue and like the way the action unfolded, like it was, he writes in such a bombastic way where you can feel like you can like it's all very explosive, it's all very gnarly, and like it's very clear what he's going after.
Hmm.
And he does his best to write directly for and to his artists, so sometimes his scripts are a bit like a conversation, which is helpful. So even in reading like what he wanted, I was like, okay, this is what he wants, how can I turn that up to 11? And so they were like, so within that first issue, it was like finding the big moments, making them bigger, and also, knowing that this is like, World War II. It's so well documented that there's so many, like, he was naming specific kinds of planes, specific kinds of soldiers and their rankings and their uniforms and so on and so
Hmm.
forth. So there were so many specifics to pay attention to. Um,
Right.
that looking at a lot of footage from that era was really really helpful. And so there were certain scenes where I was like, this needs to be, I think there's like a specific page where you're seeing the planes, like on D-Day flying
Right.
over the
Yeah.
beaches of Normandy. And like I wanted that to feel like this was like this might have been like a still or some footage that somebody was taking from their plane at the rest of the fleet. Like I
Right.
just I wanted it to be as immersive as possible. And yeah, so like I from the jump, it wasn't like there wasn't I was already sold. I knew that it was going to be like a great book to draw, but like my personal mission in life was to make it like an even better book to read, right?
Right.
So like, yeah, so there wasn't really a moment where I would discovered like, oh, this is going to be a great series after all. No, it was my mission to make it a great series to read. No, come hell or high water, that was going to be the case.
Yeah. I mean,
Success.
100% success. Agreed,
Thank
Jar.
you.
100%. I'm good on
Yeah.
questions. I do know, I think Leo has a question to ask.
Yeah, well, one of the things we try to ask everybody, wanting to get to know you better, what do you dork out about when you have some free time? If you do have free time, do you play video games? Do you chill out with the family and watch movies? What's your go-to, leisure activity?
Yeah. So when I can, if I can do things just when I'm able to do things just for fun and leisure, I like to take my kids to a pool hall and we'll play pool. If I can, I like to play pinball. I try to read. I've got like stacks of books that I'm trying to get through, and so like I try to read for my own pleasure and to get ideas. I do to this day will put on different Godzilla movies and not necessarily watch them from start to finish, but watch a good amount of them and kind of, you know, enjoy the experience of that and then move on to like the next thing or whatever. But I love watching movies in general. We we as a family will pick like a series to watch, and we'll sort of like make our way through that. Currently, we're watching Twin Peaks. Me, my partner, and
Wow.
our 16-year-old daughter. She's big into Twin Peaks, so we've been getting through that, and yeah, and then like I of course will read comics. I'm not I don't, I'm not reading everything all the time, but like I try to read what people are talking about. I try to read what my friends are creating, and so I also try to read just to keep up with like all the excellent work that so many of my colleagues are doing, and like how do I keep up with that? So in a weird way, like even the things that I do to blow off steam also feed into what I do. Uh, but like I also just I'm at a point in my life where like I also really enjoy staring at like nothing and spacing out.
Yeah.
Then
Amazing.
I'm also and then I'm like I'm trying to also stay active and be healthy and all that stuff. Like I've like I do a fair amount of boxing and
Damn.
to, yeah, and then running and all that kind of stuff. Like all the stuff that'll like as it believe it or not, like sitting at a drawing board drawing for like 8 to 16 hours a day is not the healthiest of lifestyles. So like I've
Really?
learned to try and keep the keep myself in shape so that I can sit down. Oddly enough.
There you go. Okay.
Philip can give you tips on that because that man is freaking
Always walking.
buff. And
Oh,
And
yeah,
always walking.
he's
studied
got a little
CrossFit.
Robin in training.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And
It's very cool.
Anders is this like little mini Philip. It's so cute.
It's
Yeah,
sweet.
pretty adorable.
Is there a book that you're enjoying now? Like, I always bring it up, but are you reading like any of the Absolute series?
I was reading Absolute Batman. I was reading all the Absolute stuff, but the two mainstays were Batman and Wonder Woman, and they're both really terrific. And I fell into this trap with Batman where I was like traveling and stuff, so I wasn't able to pick up the latest issue. And then by the time I got around to buy it, every retailer had sold out of it, and I was like, well, fuck, I can't keep up with this now. So I've missed an issue. And then, it's like when, are you going to get second printings and so on and so forth. So, and I still have this, I could, I guess, read it. I could read it digitally, but like, I need to read it in order and so on and so forth. And so, yeah. So, I kind of stalled on that. I was reading Ultimate Spider-Man, kind of stalled on that. And, there was a few others, but yeah, I would say that like the Absolute would have been something like it was appointment reading for a stretch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The trades are coming out, and Superman actually turned out to be pretty good. I heard the latest issue is like a tearjerker, so I need to get caught up with it. Yeah.
But guys, are you guys good?
Ready to wrap?
All right. Well, all right. So I guess that's pretty much it. So Leo, do you want to sign everybody off? So let's start.
Yeah. I want to thank everybody for watching this fine evening. You know how to find me, but more importantly, check out Adam. We got a bunch of links in the show notes up above or down below, depending on where you're watching or listening to us. Adam, where do you like people following you on social media?
I'm pretty active on Instagram, especially. So if you're a fan of like art and photos of my dog, Instagram is the place to be. And then apart from that, sometimes I post the odd thought or bad idea on Blue Sky, and those are the two most main ones. So, but Instagram for sure.
Awesome.
Adam T. Gorham.
Yeah.
Cool beans. Carrie.
Go to Carrie Sanders. Look me up on Facebook. I have all the links to all my other accounts that I don't actually use. I just have a name there and I don't post on them, but I follow people on them. You can see I have a link to my Amazon page, my author page there, so you can read my stuff. There's a crow that is judgmental. That is my avatar. And yeah, that's it. That's pretty much it for me.
Very accurate.
Yep.
Senior Jar Jar.
Well, it was a good night. I'm being heard. You can follow me everywhere: Facebook, Instagram, not Twitter. I don't think I'm there. Blue Sky and Twitch. That's all.
Drew.
Hello there, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate and who appreciates it. Darth Vader, maybe not. Who knows? So thank you so much. Please make sure to hit the like and subscribe button to follow us on our YouTube. We really appreciate it. We've got a lot of great things coming up. Definitely tune in next week where we will have 3 great comic book guests coming on to interview. The first one will be next Tuesday, the first Tuesday of February, and that will be our returning favorite letterer from Ghost Machine, Mr. Rob Lee. And you're going to have to tune in to find out who we'll be having the next day. So if you need to get in touch with me, you can find me, Drew Malo, on Facebook and Blue Sky. I'm Ghostbuster 1984. On Instagram, I'm generally busy and I'm always extremely exhausted about the drop, but that's what ADD is for, kids. So I'll get back to you after my nap's done.
Awesome. Well, that. Catch you later.
Good night.
Night, everybody.
Bye.